Are you willing to challenge everything you know about money? In the last 5 years, we have heard a lot about DeFi or decentralized finance. But do we really know what this means? I'm not even sure I know what it means, and if it's a good idea. While we often hear about new technologies are going to replace or disrupt existing systems, does this really happen that often? And I spent more than 2 decades in international finance at firms like Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. And while there were definitely issues in the system, in most cases, it never felt broken to me. Then along came the world of crypto. What does it mean? Where does it fit in? These are precisely the questions we want to get answered on the Asia Tech podcast. So we invited Karl Mohan from Crypto.com to walk us through this so we could get a much better understanding about the future of finance. Let's bring Karl in now. Before we jump in, let's thank the sponsor of this episode, Dr. Tech. Dr. Tech can help you build your e-commerce store and start selling quickly online and on social media in just a few days. And Dr. Tech stores are gorgeous, modern, and responsive. They are fully customizable and simple to use. Dr. Tech stores have hundreds of included optimizations that will help you sell more online, and a support team that can answer all of your questions. With Dr. Tech, there are no hidden costs, no commissions on sales, no add-ons to buy. Everything is included in one simple subscription. So go to hello.dr.tech/ATP to get a free trial and start building your store. You can find the link in the description below. Also, Dr. Tech is offering a special deal to the listeners of the Asia Tech podcast. After your free trial, you can get your first full month for only $1. To get this deal, simply type ATP into the live chat and they will send you a special promo code. Thanks again to Dr. Tech for sponsoring, and now let's get back to the show. Can we talk about this a little bit? Because I think you understood this a lot better than I did at the beginning. I remember going to a conference, it must have been in 2012, and there were a bunch of guys sitting on stage talking about the blockchain. So not so much talk about Bitcoin at the time, right? And it was interesting to me because right now you didn't say there was this new currency. You said there was this new technology, right? So it's a completely different lens to look at this. Do you remember when you first heard about it? And did you think to yourself, oh, this is going to change things? Do you know what I mean?
Michael, I wish I would say that in 2009, I had the foresight. As a true financial service provider, I'm a banker at heart. Not until 2014, actually, that I captured my attention. And that was through not Bitcoin, but Ripple. And Ripple was out, trying to solve cross-border payments. And as a banker, one of the biggest challenges that you face is helping customers make payments internationally. And that sort of caught my attention. And through that, I got really, I would say, fallen in love with Ethereum back then, and still a big believer of it. So that got me into it. And that's what changed my trajectory of my career anyway.
So we're only like 2 minutes into this conversation, and I feel like you're almost like the perfect person with the perfect experience to then move from traditional finance into decentralized finance and into Crypto.com, because you were kind of trying to do the same thing in the traditional banking sector. And now you've kind of flipped over. Tell me if I have this wrong. And now trying to do it from the other side and bring all these things together. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Michael. I think the change primarily is, right, there's two schools of thought.
Go ahead.
The world of DeFi is taking over and traditional finance is over.
Yeah.
And then the traditional finance guys look at the world of DeFi and look at it and say, no, nothing's going to change. And I think the opportunity that I had was to see both sides of the coin. And actually, it's just two sides of the same coin. And combining both is where the future is. And I sense that convergence is already occurring. And, maybe I'll elaborate a little bit, Michael. I think you and I share a little bit of common background, right? So I was listening into your podcast with Nia Thompson. I grew up poor. I grew up very poor. And, seeing my mom, who single-handedly educated my brother and I, which gave me all these opportunities in life.
Yeah.
And that was based on her frugality and doing a whole bunch of things. But at the same time, there was actually a gap. And that gap is financial inclusion, financial accessibility, and the ability to actually leverage those two to get financial freedom. Now, what really I am super passionate about is that transformative power of DeFi in actually creating those three elements, right? Financial inclusion, accessibility, and freedom across the world, regardless of where you are, who you are, or your background. So I sense this is only the beginning. We're seeing that power come through, and it's a super exciting future.
Okay, I want to dig deeper into this if you don't mind. And I want to give you some context first as well. In 2019, I started doing a podcast that we call the Asia InsurTech podcast. Turns out to be very popular. We've had unbelievable conversations. We've done over 300 and something episodes in this show. And I would say the first 50 to 60 of them, so almost the whole first year, people were talking about how insurtechs were going to disrupt the insurance industry. What they quickly found out was these big incumbent insurance companies just are not going away. First of all, their balance sheets are too big, but also they've been in the insurance business for 200 years and it just doesn't happen. It's just a very complex business. And they switched from disruption to enablement. And I think this idea, and I wrote it down, right? Inclusion, accessibility, and then financial freedom, which comes from those other two concepts, means that I think that you're going to have TradFi and DeFi not merged together specifically, but they're going to enable each other. Does that make more sense just from an explanation standpoint, right? That neither one of them is going to go away and both of them kind of can be enabled by the other one. Yeah.
Absolutely, Michael. A good example would be, when I was in traditional finance, when Bitcoin first came out, the first thing every banker would say is, Bitcoin's going to die. It's going to die. It's going to die. And I think Bitcoin had, its obituary written for it for the last 5, 6, maybe 7 times already. It's still around. And in fact, it is here to stay, as we know, with the launch of Bitcoin ETFs. It's not going away. It's captured global imagination. And, I think the absolute acid test, in my view, is every time you watch any movie that comes out, Hollywood movie, there will be a mention of either Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, right?
Yeah.
Either in positive light or negative light, it doesn't matter. But there is now a common lexicon that everyone knows everywhere in the world what it is and, how do you access it, right? And I sense that degree of maturity is going to increase over the years. And you're right, it's going to enable each other. Traditional finance is going to enable the DeFi world, and the DeFi world is going to enable traditional finance for sure.
I think it was Mark Twain that said the reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. I think that Bitcoin
That's right.
can probably use the same phraseology. When you think about what companies like Crypto.com are doing, right, in the context of inclusion and accessibility, and again, just based on your experience as being a banker and a technologist at heart, how do you now look at it from the other side thinking, okay, how do we work together with some of the traditional finance businesses? And then what is the benefit to end customers?
Sure.
More specifically than just like, I completely get the inclusion and the accessibility part and the freedom part, but like what is actually getting done to do this?
Yeah. So, Michael, I think the first thing is let me break down what Crypto.com is doing, and maybe then we can explore what globally is happening in this space.
Perfect.
Right? So the first one is, for us, the ability to hit 1 billion customers is where we are headed towards. We are right now about 100 million customers. We just announced that a few months ago, and we're continuing to build that. And the way we do this is in 3 parts, right? So the first one is we have created one of the most intuitive, highly usable app that customers could access from anywhere in the world. And not only that, enable a whole bunch of features and functionalities like payments and the ability to interact with each other. For example, we are one of the largest distributors of the Crypto.com Visa card, which, customers now could actually spend their crypto in over 80 million merchants globally. The second part for us is payments. I think I mentioned that previously. Crypto.com Pay, one of the biggest achievements to date, at least in my career history right now, is the enablement of 2 different integrations that we did. Number one is enabling crypto payments in one of the largest fuel networks or fuel chaos networks in Australia. and subsequently also launching the ability for sports fans who head into a stadium or one of the largest stadiums to go out there, buy their beer, pies, chips, and pay with crypto. And that was a good positive outcome, not only for us but for our customers. And finally, Michael, in our organization, we are not excluding the institutional accredited investors, and we have the Crypto.com exchange, very sophisticated platform, and very proud to say that in July, we achieved the number one spot in clearing and settlement of crypto trades.
Wow.
Highest in the US dollar crypto trades. So we beat some of our competitors, which we are very pleased about.
Can I ask you this? Like, how do you get from 100 million customers to 1 billion? It's a big goal, right? And with, what is it, like 3.5 billion people now, if we exaggerate a little bit, maybe 4 billion people connected to the internet, you want to get to like 25% of them there. It's a big goal and it's a useful goal. But like, what are, and I'm curious, like I'm genuinely curious, right? Because I don't trade crypto and I'm not an owner at the moment, right? What is stopping people from getting involved? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are some of the challenges, whether it's from the exchange standpoint, from the Visa card and payments? Like, what are some of the challenges, and what has to happen for just like regular guys and gals to get involved?
Yeah. Let me break this down a little bit, Michael.
Please.
So I think the first key part is where we have focused our attention on is, of course, fine-tuning our product and making it super user-friendly, easily understandable, and accessible from anywhere, right? So you could go to an app store or Google Play Store and download the app. So that's the first, and I think that's our mission. We continue to build, continue to add features, functionalities to make it a lot more attractive. The second component of this is regulation. So in every market, the more there is regulatory clarity, the more engaged the consumers become, or if people don't trust their governments, right? So, you go into markets where there's complete distrust of governments, then you get greater engagement. But I would think the majority, and you're talking about, the 7 billion people on this planet, majority of them are in pretty much developed markets or developing countries where regulation is going to be critical in actually enabling the services that we provide to these customers. And I guess for us, the way we are looking at it, the third is through our partnerships that we have, the sports partnerships and all of that, to increase awareness. And we have, recently we announced our partnership with UEFA Champions League. This is to enable customers to know about us globally so they can actually access our platform.
Can I ask you this? And I'm super interested in, right?
Yeah.
Are people really spending crypto with a Visa card? I go back and forth with a bunch of people, like, because it felt, at least for a while, that it was more a speculative thing than not an investment tool, but like a speculative thing more than like a payments thing.
Yeah.
Have people reached the point now where they're using the top 3 or top 5 cryptocurrencies to actually pay for things? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And the fact that we are the most successful Visa card for our category is a testament that they are. But Michael, let me explain a couple of things further, right? So
Please.
in terms of the utility of crypto in payments.
Yep.
So the first one is, yes, in terms of consumer payments, we've seen it. We are a case in point. Our card is the most distributed Visa card in our category for cryptocurrencies, right? So if it's not, then we wouldn't be where we are today. The second is, we believe in our own, kind of thinking here that crypto and using crypto as a payment mechanism is crucial for businesses as well. So to that effect, Michael, we are a big partner of Visa's, and we are a direct principal member of Visa, and our international settlements in US dollars, we settle in US dollar stable coins.
Okay.
Right? So rather than relying on, old traditional banking rails or traditional financial rails, here's where we're going. Look, we really believe in this whole blockchain DeFi change that is occurring. Therefore, we have adopted it ourselves, right? The third is, we believe in it so much that we have partnered with PayPal to introduce the PayPal stablecoin. And a little bit of fun fact, it was introduced less than 12 months ago, and it's already hit $1 billion worth of deposits.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. What has to change on the regulatory standpoint? Like, what do you think needs to change there? And if every country is different, are these things going to converge at some point in time, right? Like, does the Japanese need to speak with the Singaporeans, which need to speak to the Emiratis, which need to speak to the Americans to kind of then, what's the right word, like standardize and normalize all of these regulations? Like, if you could have two regulations that was just going to make everything better, what would they be?
Yeah, so I think, the word that we use is harmonization across multiple locations. And I think that's crucial. Regulators are talking, that's part of my job and some of my colleagues in actually engaging with regulators, educating them about the technology, because, it's bringing them up. So the regulators, to give you a bit of picture here, Michael,
Please.
They're coming along the journey as well. So they're used to regulating traditional finance, and, a lot of traditional financial folks who worked in traditional finance are also working in the regulators, right? So the way they think and actually construct strategies are based on traditional finance. Now, there's an educational part that is occurring. So as they gain knowledge and understanding of how the underlying technology works, how the systems work, they're getting better at it. So the first one is harmonization.
Yep.
The second one that we do talk about is tech neutrality, right? So that means you should regulate based on concepts, not the underlying technological architecture. So to paint a picture here, if you think about blockchains, you have Bitcoin, might work on a proof of work. That's the blockchain concept. And then you have Ethereum, which is proof of stake. Two different technological models, right?
Yep.
Now the regulator, and this is what we encourage the regulators think about, the way you regulate should be based on the principles, not the underlying technology. So tech neutrality is absolutely critical because you want to actually ensure that the regulation withstands the change that might be occurring in the underlying technology. And we've seen, like, Ethereum's a good example. It started off as a proof of work blockchain, and it's moved to a proof of stake. And, you shouldn't be regulating based on the underlying technology because it's constantly being improved on.
Yeah. Then there's the whole zero knowledge proofs. There's a whole bunch of stuff
Correct.
going on there.
Correct.
Do you think, and do you feel this, right? And maybe this is more of a personal question than anything else, but do you feel like the technology on the decentralized finance side is just moving so fast that at some level, it's almost unfair to the regulators for them to have to, do you know what I mean? Because I think, and I know this from dealing with the insurance regulators in Thailand, and I've spoken to them a lot. And I'll tell you what, they're operating in good faith. They're very forward thinking. They want to do the right thing, right? So this idea from the outside that like, the regulators are just trying to get in the way, I will push back on that. And I think it's probably true too in their traditional finance space when it comes to regulating cryptocurrency at scale. And I'm curious if you think that the tech is just moving too fast, and at some level they're trying really hard to keep up, but it's just hard, no?
Oh, absolutely. And hence, my previous comment that, as long as the regulator is focusing on tech neutrality, there's some base concepts that are similar, right? That are enduring. And I think, some regulators get it, for example, the ones that we are operating in under license in Singapore, soon to be in Hong Kong. Dubai is a good example. MiCA is interesting. So we're looking at MiCA, which is in Europe. And in these jurisdictions, there is an understanding and perhaps an appreciation that the technology is moving fast. And the way to regulate is not to worry about the technology, but worry about the functions that the technology is delivering.
Yeah. I agree. Can we go back to talking about partnerships a little bit? Because I think one of the trends that I see happening, and I'm curious if you see this happening too, is that a lot of the guys and gals that you and I used to work with on the other side of the fence are now moving into your side as well. They're thinking, not just because it's the future and the traditional finance is going away, but because there's a lot more innovation, let's say, happening on the crypto side of this and on the decentralized finance side of it. So the opportunities look huge, right? When you look at a partnership from your side now, besides sort of the inclusion thing, like what does an ideal partnership look like to you? And has that changed over the past like 3 or 4 years where now it's just easier because it feels like traditional guys have really started to accept this and onboard it internally? So what's changed? And then like what's actually happening when you get one of these great partnerships, if that makes sense?
So obviously the change is the greater distribution of the understanding that crypto is here to stay. Maybe a good case in point is in the last 1 year alone, or last 6 months anyway, we have grown from 580 million crypto owners to 617 million crypto owners, right? So that's a huge 6.5% jump in crypto ownership. Now, as a banker previously, I understand markets. And, Michael, you're the same. You understand markets, you understand market sizing, you understand growth rates and so forth. And most traditional financial individuals understand this, right? So there's two things that is occurring right now, Michael. I think the first wave was, folks like myself moving, sort of jumping ships to help, shape the future of the DeFi world like Crypto.com into embracing some of these partnerships. But what I'm seeing as well, Michael, is individuals within organizations to changing and influencing internally as well. Now, in every bank that I know and I deal with today, as you know, one of my roles is being the global head of banking partnership, and I deal with some very big banks. Every single bank has a head of digital finance / digital asset. Every bank, right? And these individuals are there to spearhead and actually drive that whole, how do we incorporate DeFi? How do we incorporate blockchains? How do we evolve our business to actually embrace, like I think I like the word that you use, to embrace this new way of thinking, new way of being. Now, the way we look at it is anything that is going to advance the adoption. And again, I come back to maybe, some things that I'm driving, which, I'm very lucky again, you get lucky in your career once, I think maybe twice. I lucked out by joining Crypto.com because there's a congruence between my own personal values and where the organization is going. So the way we look at it is, how do we actually get individuals to embrace the technology? So, for example, our partnership with Visa is a good example, partnership with PayPal, because we know that's how we're going to get to, the entire planet embracing the technology.
Can I ask you this too? I love making analogies because I think it makes it easier for people to understand. When I was at Goldman Sachs, or was it at Goldman? Yeah, like, the internet bubble was a thing, right? And a lot of guys were trying to make this decision, like, do I go work at a startup or do I stay here and sit on a trading desk? And one of the things that startups did was they let you wear just like casual clothes. And a lot of guys would come in and be like, okay, I'm getting paid really well here, but like, do I really need to wear a suit? And then like the younger guys that would graduate from Harvard and Princeton or whatever would be like, I'd love to take this job, but I'm not wearing those clothes. I'm not doing it. And I feel like the same thing's happening in the crypto space. Like these young guys and gals are graduating from top universities, coming into the big banks and just going, where's the crypto department? Can I work there? And they're like, we don't have one. They're like, you don't have one. Shouldn't we have one? Is that what you see happening as well? Like there's this generational change taking place. Yeah.
Oh, 100%, right? So, this is where I bring out my own analogies, Michael. So
do it.
I have a 20-year-old son, right?
Yeah.
And he's a digital native. He doesn't know a time where the internet did not exist. And by the time he was old enough, the smartphones were the thing. There's no flip phones or dial phones and so forth, right? So this little kid, 2 years ago, just under 2 years ago, comes to me, and he's been doing his research. And the legal age in Australia is 18 to open up financial services products, right? So you can get your own share trading account and all of that. So he gets his share trading account. and he decides to invest in US shares. So I'm giving him a few educational tips and so forth.
Yep.
Now, what the kid quickly learns is that trading in the US stock market would mean you waking up late in Australia and staying up during this time. And what he could not understand is why clearing and settlement could not occur 24/7. Now, this is something, it just mind-boggling.
T+3? He wasn't
in,
happy with T+3?
he was not happy at all because he sold some shares and he's expecting the cash because, I don't know, 18-year-old, I think he was going to buy his car. So he sold some of his shares wanting to buy this car and realized the money doesn't hit your account. And then he's asking me, Dad, but when I'm trading on crypto, you're getting the money instantaneously. I say, well, that's the power of the technology, right? That's how it has been designed to operate 24/7. There is no off switch, once it's on, it's on. And you're spot on, Michael. So, this it's an evolution in thinking. And I think that's going to drive change into the future as well. And I think it's going to be a very positive future.
Yeah, I think so too. And I watched this generational change happening everywhere. And, again, they will come into the finance businesses, they come into insurance businesses, they come into all these new businesses, and they're like, I don't understand why this isn't just like one click purchase for everything. That's what Amazon does. Why can't everybody do this kind of thing, right? And then the big companies sit there and just go, yeah, maybe we should be more like an internet company or like an e-commerce company. And you can actually see it. I mean, I remember when I was sitting on a trading desk where there was bonds, options, or equities, I was like, we should be able to settle this instantaneously because the tech is already there. Like when I make a trade, it goes to the exchange, it comes back, I get an acknowledgement, done. What's this T+3 stuff? Well, we know what that is.
That's right. That's right.
It's
why do I have to wait, right? Yeah.
Well, because the banks would be using your money to invest into other things for the 3 days that they don't have to give it to you. But that's a conversation for another time. Can I ask you this too? Let's just say there are 100 million people. I want to make sure I have this number right? On the Crypto.com platform. That's a lot of people. Just objectively, it's a huge number. Do you ever think about asset protection and insurance? You have this massive market. And the reason why I'm saying this is because banks have traditionally been the biggest distribution mechanism for insurance products, bank assurance, right? You know this already. But is there crypto assurance? Right, or Crypto.com assurance, where you can start now selling insurance products on the assets or just on anything, right? And use that as a platform. Because I know from my insurance conversations and the background that I have there that they're looking always for digital platforms to create distribution mechanisms. Is this something that's been thinking about or been thought about?
Oh, absolutely, Michael. So for every one of our customers, we assure them, and it's very similar to the US FDIC guarantee, up to $250,000 worth of their crypto assets is protected. Now, in saying that, we take stringent measures to protect customer assets, right? So including having custody and, having one of the most robust security standards. But to answer your question in directly, yes, we do. And up to $250,000 US dollars, that is, of every customer, retail customer is protected.
Okay. I want to ask a further question though, and maybe I just didn't say this the right way. The asset protection, I completely understand. But if we're talking about financial inclusion, right? A lot of financial inclusion is centered around having just regular insurance products not related to the financial assets that you have. But a lot of the markets where this financial inclusion is becoming necessary, right? Because you don't have access to bank accounts and all the kind of stuff that you were talking about at the beginning, means that they also don't have access to just regular insurance products, health insurance, life insurance, and stuff like that. And if you look at the 100 million people that you have on the platform, to the extent that any of them are in Asia or in Southeast Asia or in India, again, where insurance penetration is low, it just opens up a massive distribution possibility for non-digital asset related insurance, but just like insurance itself. I'm just curious if you've thought about that. And if you haven't, we can talk about it later.
Well, the fact that I answered your question very differently means I have not thought about it. So to date, generally the approach that we have taken to our customers is we offer products that we create and initiate ourselves. So it's been direct issuance, right?
Yep.
And so we haven't looked at ourselves as a distribution platform. And I don't think that's something we have thought through or have been thinking through because, and this is the ethos of the company as well, is to actually ensure that the products and services that we offer our customers are something that we can stand by. And whether it's our card or whether it's crypto trading, whether it's payments, we truly understand and stand by those products and services. And hence, to date, it's been products that we have directly issued. To the point where, I can openly say this, as an organization, we even create our technologies and platforms to deliver those things. So we don't use third-party services and so forth because we just want to have that assurance that our customers can and will be able to reap those benefits, which, otherwise they can't.
Do you dedicate any resources? Do you think about like financial literacy as well? Right. In the sense that if you want to be financially included, and this gets back to the conversation that we were having earlier, right? Like I grew up poor. You heard that in some of the other podcasts that I've done. And one of the problems of growing up in poverty is that you don't understand like how to use money. I mean that very seriously. Like I wish somebody had told me a bunch of stuff in my teens and like tens that I learned when I was 40 or 30, right? Because it just would have been so useful to know back then. And is there a place, and the answer is okay to be no, but I'm just curious, like, is there a place to have like seminars or just some way for a company of this stature with that many users to also be involved in just educating people about why these products are necessary?
Oh, that's a good segue for me to talk about the Crypto.com University then.
Oh, great.
So we have a Crypto.com University where, it provides, general information for customers, not only customers, anyone, anywhere in the world to learn about, financial services, at least in our environment, to understand the basics. What is blockchain? What is useful? What is investing in crypto look like, and so forth. Yeah. So there's a platform for it. Now, at the same time, Michael, we have been running a whole number of seminars, right? Whether domestically, regionally, globally, and these are to educate customers. So, in fact, in 2 weeks' time, we are holding one in Singapore. Where we are bringing in, I think, about 40, 50 students, university students, for them to understand about compliance. So, I know we talk about financial inclusion, but ultimately in financial services, compliance is a key component of it. Yeah. And so getting these students to understand what it means to be compliant, right? What it means to prevent money laundering, what it means to ensure that, you have proper safeguards and how do you protect your money and so forth. And I think the biggest one that we are pushing for right now, and we have, is working with, not only law enforcement, but some of our bank partners to mitigate scams. I think, we talk about financial inclusion. One of the scariest part that is occurring in the world today is financial scams. Yep. You have criminals looking at this as easy target, easy access, and therefore exploiting it. And this has happened throughout history, and I think it's just perpetuated further.
Yeah, I mean, it's way harder now, right? Because, again, in the old days, and I'll put that in quotes, just doing anything bad at scale was really hard. But the technology now allows you to do things really bad to so many people all at the same time. And if you're not financially literate, then you don't understand what the scam is until it's too late. And I know very well-educated people that have had some weird stuff happen to them because they just weren't paying attention, right? More than anything. Anyway, but I love the fact that you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk by having this university thing where you're out there actually teaching people, because that's where the rubber hits the road, right? If you know what's going on, you can make better decisions. What do you see coming like in the next, 13 to 19 months that excites you?
Oh, Michael, this is the part that juices me up. Look, I can't give you the details of some of this, but I can provide generalities, right? So you can head in the direction that we're heading in. So obviously, partnership is the big thing. In the next few weeks, months, we'll be making a number of partnership announcements, not just our sports partnerships, which we have seen, but actual partnerships with, service providers, financial institutions, and so forth. The second focus for me is market penetration. As you know from the other part of my title, GM for Asia, Middle East, and Africa. So we are marching down the path of being the most, not only we already are the most regulated service provider on the planet, but to increase our global coverage. So that's the second one that I'm really excited about in some really exciting markets that we'll be announcing soon as well. And finally, for me at least, is to continue driving product innovation. And, one of the things that I started this conversation with, Michael, is the convergence between DeFi and TradFi. And I think we are bringing some of that TradFi elements into DeFi. And I think that's something that I'm personally involved in, which I'm really excited in the next 12, 18 months. So another thing for you to look out for.
I'd love to learn more about what's going on in the Middle East and Africa. I think the story there is just so different than it is, right? Every market, I like to say, has its own sort of microstructures and nuances. I won't take up a ton of your time on that, but maybe the next time we have you on the show, after you've made some of these big announcements, I think it would be great, because once you're out there and those things are out in the regular market and everybody knows about it, then we can say, okay, why did you do that thing? And then how is Africa different from the Middle East? I mean, we know what's going on in the UAE. I mentioned the Emirates a little bit before, but then there's burgeoning financial center in Africa as well, right? That a lot of people don't think about and don't talk about, but that's going to be a big deal too. Africa has pick a number, 2-3 billion people, 50 something countries. It's one of the youngest.
That's the key, right? So I think one of the key statistics is something like 70% of them are under 30.
We can look at Nigeria. I can't remember what the numbers are, but there are countries in Africa where the median age is like 19 or 20.
Correct.
It's a very young
country. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, this has been amazing. And there's so much. I feel like we've been on a bunch of different topics, but we've been at this for almost 40 minutes. I'm going to let you go. This has been so cool. Karl Mohan, the GM for APAC and MEA, and Global Head of Banking Partnerships of Crypto.com. We have to have you back on again. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.
I did, awesome. Michael. This has been absolutely awesome. And, once again, thank you very much for having me on the show, and looking forward to talking to you again.